Max Sutter's announcing his recruitment decision in a couple days, his commitment decision. Listed as a tight end on 24/7, but also listed as an athlete elsewhere. Not exactly sure what he's going to play. Looking at his frame at 6'4", 6'5", 230. Looks like a tight end. I don't know if there's any plan to play him on the defensive side of the ball, but we'll give our opinion towards the end, see what he is. If you guys have any opinions as well, let me know what you think this kid plays at the next level. Depends on what school he ends up at, obviously. Every school's probably got a different idea of what he's going to do, but that all being said, let's watch the actual film. I try not to replay videos too much towards the beginning, but I think this play here was pretty important. A lot of these tight ends, a lot of them, and I'm not talking about just the highly ranked ones because they're usually the exception, but when you watch a good deal of kids that go SEC, you'll watch their high school highlights and they'll just be really tall. They won't necessarily be very good on their feet, and a lot of the reason is because you're not 6'6" in 8th grade. You just grow 6'6" in high school, and a lot of these kids take a while to grow into that, to get used to moving at that length, and that's all well and good. That's a great thing to have. Those kids, there's a reason they get recruited the way they do, because you're trusting the school to develop the strength and all that, but the athleticism, sometimes it either comes or it doesn't, and I think this kid already has it in high school. Like, if you look at 6'5", we'll trust the rating at 6'5". He's very nimble on his feet for 6'5", and you don't see that with a lot of these tight end prospects, and I think that's why you're going to see him pretty highly ranked. And when I say highly ranked, I mean blue chip status, but even not all the blue chip kids, 4 and 5 stars, not all of them are as athletically developed as I think this kid is. It's very early in the highlight tape, but .65 doesn't grow on trees, and then it's certainly not being light on your feet at 6'5". But you'll watch a kid like modern day's Bowman that just committed to USC. Great football player. He's just not quite 6'5". He's a bit undersized. Moves very well for his size. I think he's like 6'3". But a kid like this might not be as quick, might not be as good of a route runner, but if you're telling me you're trading off that athletic ability for size, I think this kid's a great athlete. There's a lot to like. Great catch away from the body. All one motion, then double clutch. I try to avoid talking about hands on high school kids' film unless it's like egregiously bad, where you could see the kid just does not understand the concept of catching the ball away from the body. But I think it's something worth bringing up for this kid because there's some discussion about what he is at the next level, and it's like, all right, I think he would be a very good defensive end prospect. A couple clips we saw on defense, very good get off, but I just feel like he's just too talented offensively to waste this. I'm glad this kid's good because sometimes these tight end highlight tapes, it's just hard for me to, evaluate. This kid's pretty easy. I suppose the questions now are going to be how he develops as a blocker, just because this film we haven't seen a whole lot. But to be honest, a lot of these high school kids don't put blocking highlights on their blocking videos on their highlight tape. Not playing a whole lot of inline like he probably will at the next level. So I think a major flaw people have with the way they talk about recruiting is they treat question marks as like negatives, where I just think question marks are things that have to get answered. So, a couple years of him in the weight room, definitely not worried about it. And I say this about every kid, but hope you notice as a recurring theme about recruiting, it's all about development. I'd say like 20 to 30% of it is about scouting. I mean, you guys tell me. I'm just always going to emphasize the development. You want the kids that you trust your staff to develop, I guess. Anyways, yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of this kid, Max Sutter. Definitely see him being effective at the next level. Less, we talk about. I was talking about development before and how important that is, but honestly, I feel like this is a kid that's probably more Power 5 ready than a lot of the prospects, especially at tight end that we watch. A lot of these tight ends are very green, and you're not expecting them to do much on the football field for 2 years. This is a kid that I think is further along in his development and certainly has high upside, but feel very good about this kid. But you guys let me know what you think. Listed as an athlete, to me, this kid's a tight end. Would understand having a conversation about him playing DN, but outside of that, definitely don't think he's a quarterback. You guys let me know.